let's move on to that first main topic today. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Brett WB, who writes, I'm not sure if this fits into the topics of the day, but maybe you can tweet about it to help it gain some traction or mention it off the top. I know you're not a fan of petitions. I'm definitely not. But I know how much you hate Cineplex and champion small businesses trying to do their own thing. All right. Brett also then gave me a link to a story, and I think this is a very important one to bring up. Now, you guys have heard me speak in the past that for the longest time, my favorite theater chain in the world was Cineplex in Canada. They just did everything right. Going to a Cineplex theater, particularly one of their Silver Cities or one of their premium theater experiences, was always a joy. And I always looked forward. It was really the theater chain that developed in me the excitement about going to the movie theaters, right? But in recent years, in my opinion, they have gone completely to crap. And I've talked on this show a number of times why I now feel like they are like the worst theater chain out there, from their scheduling, their treatment of customers, how their philosophy when it pertains to their customers and also things like this. They are very much an evil company in my estimation. And the worst part about it is that as a company, they basically have a monopoly in Canada. For every movie theater screen in Canada, if you add them up, 75% of them, over 75%, that means more than 3 out of every 4 movie screens in Canada are a Cineplex theater. That gives them all the power. It is amazing, and it's disheartening. That gives them all the power, and it means they can treat you as a customer as crappy as they want and act in any way they want without any fear of reprisals, because what else are you going to do? They own a monopoly. They've got it. Well, there is a movement right now that was just brought to my attention because of this message of smaller independent theaters that are starting petitions, but also taking it for the Canadian version of the Better Business Bureau, which is basically a bunch of independent theaters being spearheaded by the Rio Theater in Vancouver, which Ryan Reynolds talks about a lot. Ryan Reynolds once tweeted that he wants to be buried at the Rio Theater in Vancouver, an independent thing. And they have kind of started a movement right now to try to get more attention to the monopoly and how Cineplex is trying to drive small theaters out of business. Now, listen, I'm the type of guy that I believe if you are so good at what you do that everybody just wants to go to your product, that means other businesses that compete against you may sometimes go out of business, but only when it's done fair and square. Cineplex, as I just mentioned, has this giant monopoly, Rob, and they have been leveraging that monopoly to do all sorts of evil. The kind of evil the Lex Luthor would smile and give them a pat on the back and an attaboy to them. Because basically, according to these stories, what's happening is these small theaters have brought our attention to the fact that a lot of these things are them using unfair business practices. Now, this is one of the social media messages that was put out. I'll see if I can get this a little larger so you guys can see it a little bit better here. But basically, the Rio Theater wrote this. If you're wondering why you don't see Oscar-winning films like Parasite and Jojo Rabbit at the Rio Theater, even after they've been playing at Cineplex for months, the answer is because Cineplex has a monopoly on the market that has gone unchecked for years and is crushing indie theaters across Canada. We have written a petition to demand that Cineplex stop their bullying tactics by dictating the market and blocking independent theaters from booking films with distributors. Let me read that part again. Stop their bullying tactics by dictating the market and blocking independent theaters from booking films with distributors. We also ask that the Canadian Competition Bureau, that's their version of the Better Business Bureau, step in to enforce the Competition Act, that's a law in Canada, that prevents this kind of monopoly from continuing. Please show your support for indie theaters and sign this thing. Now, there is another independent theater operator, went on a little bit more in depth, and he basically said this. So this is from Eric, who works with an independent theater. He's a programmer, and he wrote, there are so many frustrating examples of Cineplex's hold on the market, keeping a title on a screen for one show at a weirdo hour just so an indie theater can't access that film, or better yet, claim the hold, then not play it altogether, which happened to me in December. Now, Let me clarify again. I am all for business. And if you do your business way better than somebody else, and it just so happens that you attract all the market and they all want to use your service over the other guys, that's fine. That's business. But for a company like Cineplex to develop a monopoly and then to leverage that monopoly with distributors saying, we will only put your movies on our screens if you agree not to let the other theaters show it on theirs. That goes well beyond the standard practice of fairness and business and the whole philosophy of how the marketplace should work. It's fine that one company is bigger than all the rest. It's not fine when that company gets bigger and then uses that size to screw out customers and to screw out their competitors in an unfair manner. Because ultimately, this is also screwing you and me over. Now, I don't live in Canada right now, but if you are a theater goer out there, this screws you over too. Because what Cineplex is doing is limiting your choice of where you might want to go see Jojo Rabbit, of eliminating your choice of where you can go and watch Ford v Ferrari. Cineplex is basically choking away your choice. Said, hey, if you're not happy with the Cineplex experience, tough luck. If you want to watch Jojo Rabbit, you have to come to a Cineplex Odeon theater. And that kind of bullshit should not stand. And it is just further, like I have been desperately looking, Rob. I have been desperately looking for excuses and ways to fall back in love with this fucking company that I spent so many years, so many hours of my life in their theaters, but they continue to prove over and over and over again, not only are they incompetent, but it's worse than being competent, they're just pure evil. They're just pure evil in the relative sense of talking about the movie industry. Just pure evil. And they seem to have no qualms about trying to unfairly dupe their competitors, what competitors there are. And they have no qualms at all. If that means we got to screw over the customers while we're doing it, we'll screw over the customers while we're doing it. And again, once again, this really highlights, so emphasizing again for a third time, because I believe it's important, because I know somebody's going to try to twist my words. I am all for open market. I am all for if you do the business better than the other guy, you should win out and the other guy should look for something else to do. I'm totally fine with that. But when you start doing these underhanded, dirty, evil, vile, fucking despicable tactics like this, that ultimately hurts the consumer, something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. And Rob, I'm not sitting here doing a bleeding heart. Oh, just save the indie theaters just for the sake of saving the indie theaters. Hey, listen, if it's an even playing field and the indie theaters can't stand on their own 2 feet, then they're going to disappear. And I've got no problem with that. But if they're getting screwed over and it's not a fair playing field, if the independent theaters don't even have the opportunity to offer the better experience to the customers because the other guy is blackmailing the distributors to not let their theater show the big movies that people want to see, that's not right. And it's got to change. Anyway, Rob, you're reading about this situation here. What are your thoughts on it? And can you think of other situations maybe where we've seen something like that in the States as well?
First of all, your rant was getting me all tingly, and I salute you, sir. But no, look, as you know, movie theaters should be doing one thing and one thing alone, and that is giving us the best movie-going experience that we as consumers should get, with great projection, great sound, great refreshments, great soft drinks, whatever that is, and that's what they should be worrying about. What I cannot abide is when you hear about these kinds of despicable tactics, a lot of these movie theater chains are not going to be showing some of the films that we get at our independent theaters. Like we have a great Landmark theater here in Pasadena that shows films that are not going to be playing down the street at the ArcLight. I like going to both theaters. Now, if the ArcLight started to strong arm that Landmark theater to not show a lot of world cinema and a lot of indie cinema, who loses out? Moviegoers. Now, I can't abide that. I think I don't know of anything like that going on here in the States. Although, you know, when Disney doesn't allow the Fox catalog to be shown at theaters who are doing revivals and things like that, that concerns me. I mean, I don't like that. When we went to CinemaCon, I was able to meet a lot of independent theater owners across the United States, and I heard stories that I'd never even considered. There's a lot of mom and pop theaters in areas that you just don't have multiplexes. There are some places in the country, more rural areas, that indie cinemas in towns are sometimes the only places that are serving those communities. And if they couldn't have access to movies, that would be a damn shame. But like everything else, at the end of the day, all these companies want to make money by not doing their jobs correctly. They want to stop other people. They want to stop competition, healthy competition, from happening. Supposedly, that's why these things are put in place so consumers can win. Not so. I feel like these corporate interests, the more they're allowed to run rampant over everything else, the more our society is hurt. I'm all for profit, but I'm not for profit when unfair competition. There's laws to prevent this, and somebody should step in and stop this from happening, because it's not fair to anyone, and it doesn't make our society better. And it's certainly not great for business when one company gets a monopoly, and then once they have that, then they don't have to have their projector bulbs as bright. They don't have to, spend the money to actually make the presentation of movies the most important thing. That's what they should be focusing on, not worrying about what their competition is doing. If they would just provide a great experience, they wouldn't have to worry about somebody else.
I agree. So listen, guys, the question is for you. What do you feel about all this? Do you think maybe there's an angle to this that we're missing or we're not taking in consideration? I would honestly love to hear it. But anyway, your thoughts on this overall, jump on down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.